Thank you so much for joining us today for This Needs to Be Said. We are with Angel Dunworth of streetlighthalo.com. You want to stop by her website for all of the resources that she offers to help you with your concerns about a loved one who may be addicted or heading down the path of addiction. Every time she comes and shares information with us, we're always left enlightened, but the topics are heavy. So I do put that out there to let you know. Get your pen and paper out. You will be enlightened, but your mouth is going to fall open because there's some things that are in plain sight that we don't even recognize as a warning sign. Angel, thank you so much for being a part of This Needs to Be Said. What do you have for us today?
Well, I'm honored to be a part of your show. Actually, today it's a sad topic, but it's a recent topic, and it's the topic of suicide because even to this day, we really don't know as much as we'd like to, and the suicide rate always triples during the holidays. And a lot of people think that's because a lot of people feel very lonely. There's a lot of stress during the holidays. It's kind of like move, get it all done, and do everything that you already had to do. And, and people just, they get way too stressed. A lot of times that's because we don't stop to relax. But there's a lot of misnomers about suicide, too, because a lot of people think that people commit suicide because they're sad. They're having a sad time. Some bad things happen to them, and so now they're sad. And that is actually, according to Psychology Today, that is absolutely not the truth. Robin Williams, before he died, about a month before he died, he posted on Twitter, people think that being alone is the worst thing in the world. It's not. The worst thing in the world is being surrounded by people who make you feel all alone. Now, I'm sure that his family took that the wrong way a month later. But in an interview he had said earlier that year that the biggest problem in his life was that when you're a funny person, everyone you meet expects you to be funny on the spot. Like, you can never be yourself. You always have to be that entertainer. Psychology Today says that it's not the people around you. So if you have someone in your life who's committed suicide or is suicidal, please don't take that personally. It isn't your fault. Psychology Today says that the 6 main reasons that people attempt suicide are, number 1, depression, and that is in the clinical sense. They have clinical depression that is untreated or their meds aren't working right. Number 2, a psychotic break, which means suffering audio hallucinations. You're hearing noises that aren't there. That also, a lot of times, is a drug interaction with medications you're just normally taking. So if something like this is happening to you, don't immediately assume I'm insane and I must go because I will hurt someone otherwise. Go to your pharmacist, line up your medications, and say, okay, do these not work well together? You need to know that. It's a lot easier than trying to plan your own demise. And it will be easier on your family members, too. I think it will go over better. Also, people who commit suicide, the number 3 reason is they are impulsive people, and they are overwhelmed with shame over that. In other words, if you are alcoholic or an addict or bipolar, or you have possibly, I'm trying to think of the name of it now, kleptomania, or something where you would have an illness where you do something impulsive. And you just feel shame over it because you can't control it. So rather than get help, you commit suicide, sadly, for those who loved you. Some of them are crying out for help. That's the number 4 reason. They're crying out for help, but they don't know how to get it. They have no idea how to help themselves. Some of them don't even know how to express what it is that they feel or what's going on inside of them. I don't think I would really be able, if I started experiencing audio hallucinations, hearing things that weren't there, I'm not really sure how I would be able to tell my family that. I would be so afraid of how they would react. Because people don't look at mental illness as if it's an illness, but it is. It's a physical illness. It means your hormones are all doing the wrong thing, and that's all it means. You shouldn't take it any more personally than if you had a cold, because that's about what it brands you as, like the common cold. It's the same thing. It's just in a different part of your body. Number 5, top reason that people commit suicide is they have a philosophical desire to die, which means, like, if you're like me and you have chronic pain all the time and you just can't live with that, or if you have a terminal illness and you have made the decision that it's more humane for you to just die before you get incredibly sick and there's no curing you, so you might as well just choose it and you want to die with dignity. That is one of the reasons, but that normally doesn't fall in the same category because normally you let people know. And number 6 is that they made a mistake somewhere in their life, but they do not feel that it can ever be corrected or atoned for. They did something and they feel that there's just God could never forgive them, or they couldn't fix it. This subject is very close to my heart, and I'm going to tell you why in a minute. But I want people to know before I do that psychology today says that the decision to commit suicide is not a decision that you make because you're desiring to die or to kill yourself. It's simply that you just don't want to live anymore because you just don't understand how to do that. You feel like you will never be able to figure out how to live life, and so you're just going to quit. But that doesn't mean that you want to be dead. It means that you're not understanding how to handle the things that are going on around you. So it's more like the mindset of a child, that's just learning. Even in an 80-year-old person, you can have that. Rather than, I don't like you, and you said that nasty thing to me at work, and, you're out to get me. It's not usually like that. That's not what's going on in their heads. It's usually medications or like a hormonal imbalance that makes it seem like a medication offset, or they just don't understand how to live their life, and they don't want to keep trying to figure it out because it's just too hard. Just a tip off for anyone out there are no rules here. You figure it out as best as you can. You try to be decent to others, and that's about it. Now, my own experiences with suicide, I'll talk about in a minute, but what I want to say first is that there are signs of suicide. There are things that pop up. Sleeping too much or sudden insomnia. Giving away personal items. Sudden fascination with afterlife, religion, and or death. If this is not in the person's character normally, and they're just getting more and more isolated, because isolating is a big part of it, and the only thing that comes out of their mouth is something about the afterlife or religion and death, that needs to be looked at, because it may not necessarily be a spiritual awakening. It can be a sign. It's just such a vague sign that most people don't catch it. Also, changes in appetite can be a tell. Why are all these things a tell? Because they are all signs of the onset of clinical depression. You could go through your whole life and not have it. One day your hormones change and suddenly you have it. This can be a very difficult thing to deal with. I mean, I've had a birth defect my whole life, but it didn't hit me till 35. And believe me, I was stunned. Even though I'd had health problems my whole life, I couldn't believe, and all I could think was, why me? I'm sure a lot of people with mental illnesses go through 1,000 times more than that. Okay, when someone says to you, I'm going to kill myself, that's a manipulative ploy. Because statistically, people who are going to commit suicide are not going to tell you that they want to kill themselves. It's going to come as complete and total shock. They just don't say it out loud. They don't say it out loud. If someone is saying that out loud, or they continuously post it on the Facebook that they want to kill themselves, those people are vying for attention. And they're trying to manipulate you. Oh, if you don't do what I want, then I'm going to kill myself. If you don't give me your attention, then I'm going to kill myself. But let me tell you something. Most people that are going to try to commit suicide aren't going to mention it. You'll never know. My aunt tried to commit suicide, and we had no clue that it was going to happen. Now, when we looked at it in retrospect, it made sense. But since everyone in the house had stomach flu, her not eating and her sleeping and isolating all the time, we just thought she had the stomach flu too. But it turned out it wasn't like that. We came in the kitchen one day and she had drank bleach. Every time she tried to kill herself, she never once said a word. I just want people to consider that. If there's someone in your life that's continuously trying to get you to do things by threatening to kill themselves, oh, you can't leave me because I'll kill myself, that person's not planning to kill themselves. They just found a way to rope you in. If you really think someone's trying to kill themselves, or if they say out loud that they're going to kill themselves, you can actually legally have them Baker acted for observation, and I guarantee you, if it's a manipulation, they won't do it again. And if it's not a manipulation, and they actually were going to kill themselves, well, guess what? You just got them help. So that doesn't make you a bad person. I think that people make very bad examples of mental institutions and psychology and psychiatry, like there's a taboo there. Like it's, oh, don't go near that. That's very, very bad. It isn't. These are doctors just like any other doctors. Because the insurance companies don't recognize it does not make them any less of doctors. It's just a different part of the body. It's just a part of the body you can't see, but it's still part of your body. And it's very important. Now, my daughter also became suicidal for a while, but she came to me for help. She said she was having suicidal thoughts. She didn't say she wanted to kill herself, but she did say she was having suicidal thoughts. Now, this part, I want to tell you what a concerned loved one goes through after the meds have started. Even after her meds had after we finally were able to get her help, because a lot of doctors wouldn't sign her into an institution. One actually said she was throwing a temper tantrum, which was lovely. But that's because she's young and she's very small, and there's only one large place here for that, and it's not the best place. We could not immediately get her in treatment because she didn't have Medicare, Medicaid, or any of those things. She didn't have any kind of disability. So she was put on a waiting list for 2 years. She only could see a medical doctor, and she couldn't see a psychiatrist yet because a lot of industries don't recognize psychiatry and psychology as a viable tool. This is what you go through as a mom. Even when they don't seem to be depressed. You can't sleep at night. Because all you can think about is, what if I open her room door tomorrow and she succeeded? You don't want them to go outside of the house. You have to let them, if they're adults, of course, and you want them to get on with their life, and you're saying live a normal life. At the same time, every time they walk out that door, you're like, what if they jump in front of the train? Okay, this is what you go through when someone you know is suicidal, and you're helping them, and you know they're trying to get help, and you've got to give them that kind of credit. And you can't really say anything, because then they're going to feel guilty about having tried to get help. But it's a very difficult struggle. So if you're considering right now committing suicide, call the hotline. Get some help. Think about the people around you. Ask them for help because they want to help you. But understand that there could be a better way. You could live through this, and you could have learned something from this, and it could have been that life is worth living. A lot of times, if you're not feeling like it is, it's a physical problem, and you should be at a doctor or a psychiatrist or a clinic. There is no shame in going to get help if you need help, because honestly, why suffer if you don't have to? Okay, now my daughter is perfectly fine now because her pills kicked in and she was her own laughing self again. But in the interim, that 1 month of waiting for those pills to start working, that's a very slippery slope for a parent, because you can't say, oh, wow, you've really scared the crap out of me. You can't say that because it's discouraging. On the other hand, that doesn't make you any less worried. I don't care. When she's 45, she'll still be my baby. And I'll always love her like that. But thank God she had the foresight to come and say, Mom, I need some help. I need some help. Something's wrong. And it did turn out to just be her hormones. So I want you to consider that. They put her on the birth control pill. She's perfectly fine now. Believe it or not, that's all it was. If you're left behind, you're more than likely going to suffer survivor's guilt. Suicides that leave notes really tend to raise more questions than they give answers, and that leads to further questions of, why didn't they come to me? Or why wasn't I enough to live for? People who have lost a loved one must understand that the suicide, it didn't have anything to do with you. It wasn't a personal blight. They just didn't know how to live their life. It wasn't a reflection of your ability to love them. It wasn't, oh, you didn't hug me enough when I was a kid or any of that. What it was, according to Psychology Today, was a victim's ability to perceive and receive that love. In other words, they couldn't understand that you loved them, no matter how hard they tried, and they didn't know how to accept the love that you were offering. But that does not mean that you did not love them enough. And before you go to bed tonight, hug all your loved ones. Whether they can understand it or not, it's still worth doing. Now, if anyone here is listening and you need the suicide hotline, the number is 1-800-273-8255. That number again, 1-800-273-8255. If this is a decision that's going to last forever, couldn't you just take 10 more minutes to talk to someone about it and maybe make a different decision? Could we consider that option? And that's what I have on that very depressing topic. And
wow,
I hope we've helped someone here today.
I know we have. Thank you for being so transparent and vulnerable in your sharing on today. That was very personal. And we all at some point or another, if we have not thought it would be better if we just, weren't here, no matter how deep that thought has gone, or even if someone has used that as a manipulation, I'll kill myself if you don't give me your attention, or even, your child coming to you saying, I've had thoughts, of suicide. I just had thoughts that it would be better if I wasn't here. That as a mom is a tough thing to hear, because me as a mom, I want to go before my kids. I don't want to know the pain of losing a child. I have friends that have, and I can only imagine what they've gone through, and for our children to decide to take their lives for whatever reason, that they can't handle it anymore. I would love to be able to help them as opposed to ignoring the signs or the warnings that have come. So this is yet again a heavy topic, but much needed, and I'm sure we've helped someone with your information here. Angel, before we wrap up, let people know how they can get in touch with you outside of This Needs to Be Said.
If you need to contact me, you can go to my website, www.streetlighthalo.com. There's a contact button that comes directly to my email. And if you want to buy my books, that's www.CheshireGrinPublishing.com.
Thank you so much for being a part of This Needs to Be Said. Until next time.